In this video, we're going to dive into your first task. So your first task is to create a critical thinking activity called Which One Doesn't Belong? And this is one of my absolute favorite tasks to use with students for a couple of reasons. First, it helps to build their critical thinking skills because you're going to give them several pictures or examples to look at, and then you're going to ask them which one doesn't belong. So they really have to use their skills to determine what's different and what's the same about each of the images or the examples that you provide. And then just to add a little extra critical thinking, they have to decide which response to provide. So, and let me back up a little bit. The great thing about this task is that there are multiple answers. You could look at them and decide that this one is out or this one is out, but for different reasons. And so that's that little extra bit that they really have to think about what strategy or which kind of rule out idea or tool they're going to use in order to determine which one doesn't belong. So here's an example of that. And I'm going to start with a geoboard. I love geoboards. Yes, I know that the rubber bands can be a bit of a challenge in the classroom, but I really do love using geoboards. So I'm going to start with this. I'm actually going to create a task for shapes, and this is a great way to get started. And so if you teach anything with shapes in your curriculum, this might be the perfect task for you. So this is a geoboard, and I'll just do a little quick kind of rundown of tools. So here are rubber bands. And then down here, we have some options for how the board can look. So this gives me grid lines. And so I want to go ahead and get grid lines. And then let me move my picture here. This is something else that I want. In fact, I'll move my picture up here to the top. All right. So I'm going to use the text feature to create text, but I also want to just share some tools down here. So you have some other options for how your geoboard can look. And you probably have seen when you buy geoboards at the store, sometimes there'll be like a circular geoboard on the back, and then you've got, the traditional square one on the front. So you can play around with the options here. So we're using kind of the square, there's the isometric, and then there's the circular one. So I'm just going to use the square. And I'm going to start with text. So when I click the T, it brings up a text box, and I'm going to go ahead and type. That's one of the things I like about Brain Camp is that you can type on each of the pages. And so that makes it nice and easy for kids to be able to see what we want them to see. Because I don't know about you, but my handwriting is not so great when I'm trying to write with my mouse. So which one doesn't belong? And of course, you can choose a color for that. I'm just going to leave it black right now, and I'll move it to the top of the page. Now, I do want to just create a separation. You don't have to create a separation, but I just think for here on this board, it looks cleaner. So I'm just going to kind of create some axes here. And you can see that once you've kind of got your rubber band in place, we can then click on it, and it brings up this little menu where you can copy it or you can remove it. And this one, I'm not sure what that one does. It looks like it does another type of motion. Okay, really the tools I use most, of course, are remove and duplicate if you wanted to make a copy of it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that going the other way. So I'll grab another rubber band, place it down here. And you can see I'm just trying to create a little bit of separation for my board. You got a little extra dot there. All right, perfect. So now what I'm going to do is just start creating my shapes. And remember, the goal here is to have multiple ways that a student can determine what's out. And so I'm going to start with a trapezoid. I'm going to make this a right trapezoid. So for a moment, you have to kind of remember what it's like to move those rubber bands around and how to create the shapes. But I'm going to make a right trapezoid here. That tool is the fill-in tool. I'm thinking it didn't give me the fill-in. So this, down here on the bottom, you can toggle this off and on. So you can, that's not filled and then filled. And then I want to make a triangle. So I'm going to make a right triangle over here. You might start to see a little bit of a theme. Oops. All right, there's my right triangle. Then I'm going to make a parallelogram down here. And finally, I'm going to make a square. So you can already see that there's multiple ways to decide which one doesn't belong. And all I'm really looking for is whether students are able to use correct math terms and how they describe which one doesn't belong. So, for example, you could say that the square is out because it's the only one that has all sides the same. You could say that the parallelogram is out because it's the only one that doesn't have any right angles. You could say the triangle is out because it does not have any parallel sides. You can see there's multiple ways to look at this situation. And that's really what we want to hear from kids. So this is why this is one of my favorite tasks, because it really gives me a glimpse into their thinking. And this could be something that you do on a regular basis with a variety of things. It doesn't have to be exactly what you're working on in the classroom. This is just, again, a critical thinking tool. It is great for when you're working on this strategy or on this skill as well, but it doesn't have to be. So I want you to think about the possibilities and how you can use some of the other tools. If you're teaching place value, you may give them 4 different quantities and ask them which quantity doesn't belong. And you could do something like, if you're teaching decimals, you could have several with like 3/100ths and then one that has 3/10ths, and see, if they can make those connections. So there's lots of ideas and ways that you can utilize this skill in the classroom. There is a website called Which One Doesn't Belong. I think it's wodb.ca, I think is what it is. You can get a lot of ideas and then think about how you can use the virtual manipulatives to create your own kind of critical thinking activity. I can't wait to see them in the group. Please post them in the group so that we can see what you're working on, and other people can get ideas from what you've created. So I look forward to seeing that. If you have any questions, please reach out and let me know. Thank you.